Back in Action is a action comedy with spy and romance elements sprinkled in. It starts with a relatively good de-aging of Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx in an introduction which manages to feel incredibly short and drawn out at the same time. The introduction with Emily and Matt lasts 14 minutes. The first 5 is the real introduction, in which they act as French arms dealers that are clearly not French, as they do nothing to disguise their American accents. This is the part that feels short and unexplored. The second half of the introduction is 9 minutes, which does achieve some things, but feels drawn out with little meat. It is also undermined by a scene involving a plane crash, in which the only word I could think to describe it would be unbelievable. And I don't mean that in a good way, I mean it is not believable. At a time where the media is reporting more aviation disasters and their unsurvivability than ever before, the insane coincidence is laughable and takes you out of the movie, failing to suspend any disbelief. Emily and Matt are very likeable as characters, but they can't really be loved because they don't seem to have any real flaws. They try to introduce the flaw of being overprotective, but when the overprotection is against their 14-year-old daughter who wants to go clubbing with men in their 20s, can you really blame them? If anything, they handle it a bit too well. Speaking of the daughter, for the first half of the film, she is absolutely intolerable. I understand that they wanted to have some development towards the end, but did they really have to make her, again, unbelievably unlikable? And yes, she does get better, but the damage was kind of already done. The son is okay. He seems like a normal child and is a lot more likeable than his sister. But what I will say is that they both handle stress a bit too well. I won't say anything about the bad guy of the film because of spoilers, but as far as films go, they were very much an okay villain. Notably, there are also 2 more characters worth mentioning, which is Emily's mum and her apprentice, Nigel. The mother is a solid all-round character and gives the vibe of being like Judi Dench's M if she doubled down on doing Pilates and hiking into her later years. Her apprentice, Nigel, despite speaking like a character from Wallace and Gromit and being a bit too much of a comedy relief at times, made me feel rather charmed. I can't say if it was the connection of being British or his helpless but earnest and clumsy yet capable demeanour. Or it could just come down to the fact that if you squint really hard, he kind of looks a bit like Theo James. And I won't say too much about the plot because that is where all of the spoilers hide, but the rough outline is that Emily and Matt retire from being Jane and James Bond to live a quiet life, but their past catches up with them, forcing them out of retirement. It is quite predictable, but I won't hold that against them. One thing which does let the story down is how the plot revolves around a thingamajig MacGuffin skeleton key object that has incredible abilities. We get told what it is, but there is no solid explanation as to how it works. Sometimes the audience doesn't want answers for these things, but when MacGuffin essentially gives the holder the power to go creative mode in real life, it does raise questions as to how that is possible. There also seems to be a bit too much CGI used throughout the film, even when it's not seemingly necessary, but I guess that's most films these days. The choreography is interesting and mostly well done, but it does occasionally fall into the trap of the baddies telegraphing their attacks by taking 1 to 2 business days to throw a punch. And overall, I would say that this is an average movie. The lack of swearing and blood means that it would be suitable for younger people, but the target audience is pretty much to try and please anyone. I'd personally give this a 5 out of 10, but I could see people going as low as a 3 or as high as a 7, depending on their inclinations. It does, however, get a little non-value bonus point for being on Netflix and not having to deplete your month's savings to go to the cinema.